There's a video that's been playing on loop across every major news network this week. You've probably seen it. Savannah Guthrie, one of the most recognizable faces in American journalism, standing in front of cameras with tears in her eyes, pleading for her mother's life. $1 million, that's what she's offering. And while the world is fixated on that number, on the money, on the emotion, on the spectacle of a famous daughter begging for answers, almost nobody is asking the question that actually matters. Because the real story isn't about the ransom. It isn't even about the kidnapping itself. The real story is buried inside a single timestamp, 2:28. That's when everything went dark, and not just figuratively. At that exact moment, something happened to Nancy Guthrie's medical devices that nobody in mainstream media has had the courage to fully explain. Not the FBI, not the local sheriff, not the networks, nobody. What you're about to hear is the theory that investigators are quietly considering behind closed doors. A theory involving electronic surveillance, a sophisticated snatch and grab operation, and a digital shadow that followed Nancy Guthrie long before anyone broke into that house. There's a growing body of evidence suggesting this wasn't random, this wasn't opportunistic, and the clue that might crack this entire case wide open, it's something as small and ordinary as a Bluetooth signal. Stay with me, because this one goes deep.
In a miracle, we still believe that she can come home.
Let's start with what we know. Nancy Guthrie wears a heart monitor. Like millions of Americans with cardiac conditions, her device syncs wirelessly to a paired smartphone, in this case her iPhone, using a Bluetooth connection. That connection has a maximum range of roughly 10 feet under normal conditions. It's a short-range signal, and as long as Nancy and her phone are within that 10-foot bubble, the app logs her vitals continuously. The moment she moves beyond that radius, the connection drops. And here's where things get deeply unsettling. At exactly 2:28 a.m., Nancy's heart monitor app lost its Bluetooth connection to her iPhone. Not a slow fade, not a gradual drift as someone shuffles down a hallway, an instant disconnect. The kind of disconnect that only happens when a person is physically removed from a space with speed and precision. And the phone was left behind. Think about that for a second. Your average burglar, your average opportunistic criminal, they take the phone. It's worth money, it's easy to resell or strip for parts. But this person left it. Why? Theories suggest the abductor understood, on some level, that the iPhone was a GPS tracking device, a digital leash that law enforcement could use to follow them, so they left it. What they apparently didn't account for was the heart monitor app still running silently in the background, logging the exact second that Nancy's body moved beyond Bluetooth range. That app became an involuntary witness. It timestamped the crime. Now here's where the speculation really takes off. And it's important to note that what follows is unverified theory, not confirmed fact. Some digital forensics observers following this case online have suggested that the precision of that 2:28 a.m. timestamp, combined with the deliberate decision to leave the phone, points to someone with at least a working knowledge of how consumer tracking technology operates. Not necessarily a government operative or a Hollywood spy, but someone who did their homework. Someone who scouted this. Someone who knew enough to avoid the obvious traps but missed the one they couldn't see coming. The pacemaker app they never thought to check. Now we need to talk about the photographs. Because about 48 hours after Nancy Guthrie was reported missing, the FBI did something unusual. They released surveillance images of a suspect, images that on closer inspection told two different stories depending on which photo you were looking at. In one set of images, the masked man approaching the Guthrie property was carrying a backpack. In another, captured on a different occasion, he wasn't. Same general build, same masked face, but a critical difference in what he was carrying. Federal sources reportedly interpreted this as evidence of a reconnaissance visit, a preliminary trip to the property made days before the actual abduction, during which the suspect was carrying equipment, scouting gear, planning materials. Whatever was in that bag, it wasn't there on the night of the kidnapping, because by then the work had already been done. This is where the tension between federal and local law enforcement gets genuinely bizarre. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos, whose jurisdiction includes the area where Nancy was taken, publicly dismissed this interpretation. He called the double visit theory, to use his own framing, purely speculative. Now, law enforcement officials downplaying competing theories isn't unusual on its own. Turf wars between agencies are as old as American policing. But when the FBI and a local sheriff are publicly contradicting each other about whether a kidnapping was professionally pre-planned, that's not a routine disagreement. That's a crack in the official story large enough to drive a truck through. And the internet noticed. Social media, for all its chaos, has a remarkable ability to crowdsource pattern recognition. Within hours of the photos being published, amateur investigators were cross-referencing timestamps, analyzing the suspect's posture and gait, and cataloging every visible detail. There's been an ongoing joke, darkly funny, in the way only true crime communities can pull off, that the internet identified a Staples employee from 3 pixels in a security camera photo faster than law enforcement has named a masked man who walked up to a famous journalist's home multiple times. Whatever you think of online sleuthing, the scrutiny here has been intense, and the official silence in response has been louder than anything anyone has said on the record.
We also know that she may be lost. She may already be gone. She may have already gone home to the Lord that she loves and is dancing in heaven with her mom and her dad and with her beloved brother Pierce and with our daddy.
Let's pivot for a moment, because the $1 million reward isn't just grief, it's strategy. And once you understand the psychology behind it, the entire calculation changes. Professional kidnapping operations, particularly those involving ransom demands, run on a specific internal logic. The kidnapper holds power as long as they hold the captive. The moment that calculus shifts, the moment it becomes more profitable or less risky to cooperate with authorities than to see the scheme through, the operation starts to collapse from the inside. And that's exactly what Savannah Guthrie's $1 million reward is designed to trigger. According to reports, the kidnappers demanded $6 million in Bitcoin. Reports suggest this demand came in through digital channels consistent with organized criminal operations. Now think about what that means for anyone involved at even a peripheral level, a driver, a lookout, someone who helped plan the logistics. They're looking at serious federal charges, a potential lifetime in prison, all for a slice of a $6 million payday that may never actually materialize. Now compare that to $1 million guaranteed, legal, and handed over by a grieving daughter who is clearly willing to pay. The math for snitching has never looked more attractive. The Bitcoin angle adds another layer that's worth unpacking. Bitcoin transactions are pseudonymous, not anonymous. There's a common misconception that cryptocurrency is untraceable. It isn't. The blockchain is a permanent public ledger, and once law enforcement identifies the wallet addresses involved, every transaction becomes visible. The FBI doesn't necessarily want the kidnappers to avoid moving that money. In some scenarios, investigators are quietly hoping the criminals try to liquidate, because the moment they do, every hop that Bitcoin takes through the financial system leaves a trail. The $6 million demand may have felt clever to whoever made it. From a federal investigative standpoint, it's potentially the rope they'll use to hang themselves. There's one moment from Savannah Guthrie's public statements that no one seems to want to talk about directly. It's a single line, delivered quietly, almost as a throwaway, but once you hear it, you can't unhear it. She may already be dancing in heaven. Read that again. A daughter is standing in front of cameras, offering $1 million for information about her missing mother, and she uses the phrase, may already be dancing in heaven. That's not the language of someone who believes their loved one is alive and waiting to be found. That's the language of someone preparing, grieving in advance, processing something that hasn't been officially confirmed, but that feels in the gut like a foregone conclusion. Now, families of missing persons sometimes say things in the heat of emotion that don't fully reflect their actual beliefs. Grief does strange things to language, but consider the context here. There was blood found on the porch of the Guthrie property. That detail has been confirmed by multiple outlets. The amount, the source, and what exactly it suggests about Nancy's condition at the time of the abduction have not been fully disclosed to the public. which means the family has access to forensic information the rest of us don't. So here's the question that hangs over this entire case like a storm cloud. Is this a search for a living woman? Or is the $1 million reward actually a search for a body, a final act of love from a daughter who already suspects the worst but refuses to stop fighting until she has something to bring home? That question doesn't have a clean answer yet, but the fact that it needs to be asked at all says everything about how dark this story has already become.
This is what is to be, then we will accept it.
Here's where we land, and I want to be direct with you about what we know versus what we're theorizing. The Bluetooth timestamp is real. The FBI sheriff tension is documented. The $6 million Bitcoin demand has been reported. The blood on the porch has been confirmed. Savannah's exact words are on the record. What remains deeply uncertain is the interpretation, whether the suspect is a professional with surveillance training or simply a lucky amateur who stumbled into a plan that held together longer than it should have. Whether the masked man is a stranger who found an opportunity or someone from within Nancy Guthrie's broader social circle who knew her routines, her devices, her schedule, and her vulnerabilities in ways that a random predator simply couldn't. The Bluetooth shadow theory, the idea that Nancy was electronically tracked and electronically exposed at the same time, is speculative, but it's the kind of speculation that investigators take seriously because it fits the evidence pattern better than most of the alternatives. A deliberate disconnect, a phone left behind, a timestamp that nobody planned to leave. Sometimes the most revealing moments in a crime are the ones the criminal didn't know they were creating. So I'll leave you with this. Do you think the masked man is someone from Nancy Guthrie's inner circle, someone who knew which devices she wore and which phone she carried? Or do you believe this is a professional operation carried out by someone who researched her life from the outside in? Drop your theory in the comments. And make sure you subscribe and hit the bell because the forensic DNA results from the recovered glove are expected soon, and the minute that information drops, we're going to break down exactly what it means, piece by piece. This story isn't over, not even close.